Hello and welcome to the Cypress Hollow Zoo. My name is GrizGoat and today we are building a rehabilitation center for some raccoons. If that's something you're into, please like and subscribe and drop some raccoons in the comments to show your support for raccoons and how cute and fluffy they are. So let's jump right into the build. We're starting our build off with a lovely little backstage building that our raccoons will be able to come into and escape the elements. We'll have some backstage stuff for our staff here at the Cypress Hollow Zoo, and most importantly, plenty of enrichment for our little raccoons. So this window will be kind of the main area that guests will be able to see our raccoons from when they're inside. And I'm just using a grid piece just so I get these mesh barriers separated equally. And then we're gonna color those black just so they're not so in your face. And I found that this piece makes the perfect door if you just stack two on top of each other. Perfect door for your aviaries, for any kind of mesh habitat that you're building. And here we have our raccoon door. This small door is where they'll be able to access our outside mesh enclosure. And then we're gonna carry the roof that we've been using throughout the zoo over to this building. And then you can see our barn over there. On the back side of it contains all of our staff facilities and our quarantine, ensuring that the animals here at Cypress Hollow Zoo get the best quality animal care that they can get. And now something I've been doing a lot lately is just adding a little vent to the top of my buildings. It really helps to just kind of make it feel more realistic. For some reason, just one vent makes a difference. Here we're using just a mesh panel to lay out our raccoon cage and give them plenty of space outside to run around and climb in. We're gonna angle this just to meet our obscure path. It wasn't quite laid out on a 90-degree angle, but that's okay, we can make the adjustment. The adjustment does get a little annoying when it comes to putting the top of our cage here. You'll see a lot of overlapping pieces. It's always a fun time doing the mesh pieces for the top of an enclosure. Eventually, you just have to accept your fate and have overlap. But that's okay because we're not perfect around here. So now it's time to just add some support beams across the top. I'm just going post to post. That seems like a logical way that this would be built in real life. Some of the longer stretches might need a post in the middle, but because we don't need that in-game, we don't need that aesthetically. Here's the final look at the cage and the building together. You can see the beams are holding up nicely. Let's get started on our climbing structure. So we're gonna use these dead logs, they're the African logs, and we're just gonna place them at the far end so that visitors can see our raccoons just kind of hanging out, kind of unobstructed and having a good time. So we're just gonna make kind of a scattering branch aisle here, and you can imagine that the raccoons would be jumping from log to log, running up and down, and probably just hanging out, taking a nap sometimes. And I think this area does a good job of showcasing the animal in a close-up view that I think the guests will really like. Now it's time to plant up our habitat. So we're putting a nice big dead log to enhance the natural aesthetic and give them some natural enrichment. And then planting some tall bushes just to get them a little bit of privacy and create a natural setting for our raccoons to thrive in. Now that we got the habitat all planted up and looking nice, it's time to move on to the inside of our building. So we're gonna have another climbing structure on the inside that will have platforms for them to sleep on, as well as bedding below, just so they have plenty of options to come in and take a nap during the day, and to escape the tropical heat and humidity that we have going on. We'll put down some enrichment items for them just so that they do come in here and take advantage of this area, and then some bedding to keep their little raccoon toes warm when they sleep. We're also going to add a sliding door on the outside. Now this piece does actually have a light on the back that you cannot turn off, which is kind of annoying, but it's not too distracting at night. So I really like the size and the look of this piece, and I didn't really want to change it. But we're just adding a chain to the top that's going to enter in through the building, and our staff will be able to open the gate from the outside of the habitat. Now these little pieces will act as our track to keep our door from flopping all over the place, and then we'll add our staff gate right over the gate that we built, and then move the path over to where we want our staff to enter through. Here comes our first raccoon. I'm a big fan of the smaller animals that can get away with smaller habitats. I hope we get more in the future, because that would be awesome. But for right now, we're going to check and make sure that this guy can actually go in and out of this door, and his hitbox isn't going to affect it, and it looks like he does have a small path that he can get through. Now it's time to add some enrichment for this little fella so he can get back to relaxing. We're adding in some food enrichment on the inside of the building just because the keepers will not be able to go on the outside of the habitat. And then adding a small pond because raccoons do require some water area in their habitat, which I did not know. And you can see here, our raccoon has already found a way to escape. It's because this log was way too close to the mesh barrier, so he managed to get through, which is a quick fix. We'll just sink this log down a little lower and move it away from the beams. We're also going to add in a different staff door and add some lighting to light up the area at night, so it doesn't look so dark and dingy. Now we're going to add some backstage pieces. Typically I do not do very much with backstages. I never know what to put back there. Sometimes I feel like I'm putting too much, sometimes I feel like I'm putting not enough, but we're just gonna make a little table and a little shelf just to hold some food and extra boxes and buckets. Shout out to Sparrow and Gunter's Gaming for doing very nice backstage areas and making me have to do one, because they look nice and they add a lot of detail that looks really nice in the end and takes your build one step further. Even if the pieces you put in there don't make sense for anything, it still looks like you thought it out and planned for this. Here's kind of the final look at how the interior looks. We expanded it out quite a bit because we couldn't get a food dish in the area that we had before. And now another thing I've started doing in the Cypress Hollow Zoo is just adding gutters. Adding gutters will also add quite a bit of detail to your build. You just want to make sure that you have position snap on and it'll snap right in a nice line. But it's something that I was constantly overlooking in my other builds, and now I think they're going to be on every build that I do. And now to keep the guests' grubby little fingers away from our raccoons and from feeding them, we're going to add just a short little fence on the outside of our mesh, just to keep the guests back. Because I know people like me would probably try to pet the raccoons, and I know I shouldn't, but sometimes you can't fight the temptations. So we're going to put a fence, and that will keep guests away, hopefully. And then to fill this little triangle right here, we're just going to add some bushes. And here is our final look at our build. Here we have a raccoon just hanging out in its naturalistic looking habitat. I feel like we really captured the essence of a backyard roadside zoo that really cares about its animals and tries to do the best that it can to hopefully rehabilitate them and release them into the wild one day, or just create a wonderful life for them to live the rest of their days. And this climbing structure, they just jump right through. The traversable map says that they can climb on all of that, but I guess they're just efficient at getting to the duck. I hope you all enjoyed this build. It was quite a fun time. Cypress Hollow Zoo is really coming together, Let me know what I should build and plan for in the future. I will take your suggestions, as long as you leave raccoons in the comment section. Goodbye!